Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third lab. In the third lab, what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can store and display images like JPEG images on our computer as data in Matlab, and how we can use that to manipulate the photos. And we can start to look at like color filtering and some interesting things like that. But first, let's just see how to read and display images. Okay, so the first thing we want to do here is convert the JPEG to data that MATLAB can read. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to define a variable. Let's call it image JPEG. And it's going to be equal to the command called imread. And what this does is it allows you to look up a file, and when you put the file inside of this command, what it's going to do is convert it to an array that MATLAB will store as data so that we can manipulate. And so what you'll do is you'll go over to your folder here, right? You'll find the JPEG you want. So like for the lab, you guys are going to do it for the JPEG of a baboon. But I'll do one of Pikachu here. So we can go ahead and store this. And see, now it's stored as a three-dimensional array, actually. So now we can come over here and we'll put these apostrophes, Pikachu.jpg. Okay. And then this stores our data, and then we want to be able to display it. So let's do the next command called imshow. And then we enter our array here, or our image, and we can hit run, and we get a picture of Pikachu. So that's how we can kind of store the data and then display it. And there's a couple of things we want to do. So I'm going to hit run here again. When we're talking about these images as a three-dimensional array, we have one component here. We'll denote it by m. It's going to be the number of pixels in the horizontal direction, right? We know a photo is composed of a certain amount of pixels, right? So along the horizontal axis, we'll say that there are m pixels, and along the vertical axis, we'll say there are n pixels. And then to each pixel, we assign a combination of the colors red, green, and blue, right? And a specific combination of these three colors gives us a specific color that we see visually, right? So there's a certain combination of red, green, and blue that gives us yellow and red and this kind of rustic brown here. And so that's kind of what we'll be looking at now. So the next thing we can look at is how to find dimensions of our image. Okay, and what we can do is we can define our variables m and n as follows, right? And then we use the size command here. And if I hit run, whoops. If I hit run here, then you can see down in the command window, we have that m is 472, n is 1280, and then, sorry. Yep. And then L here is 3, right? So, okay, so now that gives us the dimension. And the reason the dimension of L is 3, right? M was horizontal, N was vertical, and then L here is 3 because it's a combination of red, green, and blue. So now what we want to do is we can also talk about color channels, okay? So there are different color channels. And some people call these layers, as like layers to the image. And what we can do is we can kind of extract separate layers here. So let's look at the red channel first. Okay, so what the red channel is we take our image, say image JPEG here, and now we, how we type this out is we kind of extract what color we want to look at. So for example, I want to consider all rows, whoops, and all columns, but I only want the first layer of color. The first layer of color will be red. Okay, the second layer will be green. The third layer will be blue. So when I look at this here, and I can display this by using a figure. Okay, so again, what this does, this code right here, is we're looking at our image. We want all rows of pixels, all columns of pixels, but we only want the first layer of color. And the first layer of color is going to be red. Now, you would say, okay, well then, wouldn't that make our picture all red? Not quite. What this is doing is it's extracting the data of the first layer. So when we go figure show here, and let's look at red channel, what we're going to get is we're going to get a gray photo, a gray image of this extracted data of the first layer. Okay, because when you have just one layer of a three-dimensional array, that's a two-dimensional array, which is a matrix. It's a matrix comprised of values between 0 and 255. So between all of those values, right, like it just assigns a number, and that's going to correspond to like a grayscale image here, which is why our image is gray. And so we can do this for a couple channels. So let's look here. Maybe I want to look at the green channel next, right? And so let's look at image JPEG, and I want all rows, all columns. I want the second layer of color. Okay, and now again, I can go figure, I am show, and let's look at green channel now. Okay, so when I do this and hit run, I should get another grayscale image, but it should be different now. It should be corresponding to the layer corresponding to the green values, right? So if I hit run, so there you go. And you can see here, if I can move, you can see these are different, right? They take different numerical values. And so I'll get a new image. And lastly, for the sake of completion, what we could do is we could do this for blue as well. So I could do blue channel, image JPEG, again, all rows, all columns. Now I want the third layer, right? And this is the maximum of my dimensions, right? Because in the third entry here, L ranges from 1 to 3. So then I'll go I am show. Let's look at the blue channel. And I can hit run. And here we go. Here is the blue, which you can tell is much darker than the previous two. So this is how we can kind of extract the data by color here. And this is kind of the first thing that we can really do. What we'll do from here in the next video and in the third video is we'll look at how we can start to actually introduce like filters to images. So like in Instagram, you know, there's like grayscale and sepia and all sorts of like creative filters. And so in the next videos, we'll explore how you go about doing that with MATLAB. So.